Hello and welcome to another edition of the Same Old Stripes podcast. We hope you're doing fantastic. The Bengals have gone through a lot of the silly season stuff as they're entering the mandatory portion now. OTAs are over, all the rookie stuff is over. Lots of Bengals that have already reported. But To and I are here today, and plenty to talk about. But I think the big thing that'll be on the docket to start for us will be the Jonah Williams arriving at minicamp ahead of training camp, which I think is where a lot of us expected to see him. We'll get into all that in a minute. We might see a Billy appearance later. He's being a father somewhere, but he said that he's gonna do his damnedest to jump on the show. Whatever we're talking about, he's gonna pick it up. Well, let's check in with To first. It's been a couple weeks since I checked in with To. Man, how are you? It sounds like your summer's off to a nice and busy start.
Yeah, man, I'll tell you, we missed you. We missed you a lot, and we're glad to have you back. So, yeah. But, yeah, my summer's been good, man. You might laugh, but 2 weeks ago, I finally went to the doctor to get my knee checked out. I had a basketball injury in February, and I was too stubborn to go get it checked out.
That's a long wait.
Yeah, so a pretty long wait.
Still bugging me. You should probably get checked out. That's what experts say.
Kind of what I was thinking. I was like, if I'm collapsing while playing Beersby, something's wrong. So, yeah, I got that checked out, and the nurse calls me back, and she's just like, yeah, dude, you have a torn meniscus and a complete disruption of your ACL. So, need surgery to say the least. So that'll come at the end of the summer. But otherwise, man, it's been a pretty good summer. Staying busy, trying to make some money, and, ready for Bengal football. How are you doing, man?
I'm doing great, and it's good to hear that you are such a Bengals fan that you want your knee to be just like Joe Burrow's. I'm really inspired, and that's being a real fan right there. Not many fans can say that. I didn't know that about your knee. That's disgusting, and actually pretty funny that you've just been like controlling the world with it for 4 months. Like, good, more power to you. That's crazy. But more power to you. Speaking of knees being disrupted, we got a guy to talk about that's had some knee disruption, To.
Oh, boy.
Jonah Williams is at the top of our slate today, and we actually have a few things to talk about with Jonah. Kind of a perplexing player. Actually, a guy that I don't think we've spent that much time talking about. We've talked a lot about Orlando Brown and some of the other pieces on the offensive line. We've touched around the right tackle conversation, but we haven't talked about Jonah Williams much in particular. But what better day than today? Because he showed up to mandatory minicamp. His day started with a lovely team published piece from Jeff Hobson that basically was like, I love the Bengals. Everything's fine. Everything is so cool. This honestly is super normal. Nothing weird at all. I'm more than 100% or will be more than 100%. It also came with a media session later in the day that featured him publicly saying his side of the Orlando Brown transaction situation. He said he wished he had a heads up earlier in the day, that he had to find out through Apple News, and one of the teammates texted him before any of the coaches got a hold of him. So lots to talk about with Jonah Williams today. But I think right off the bat, let's talk about the right tackle conversation in general. I think it's really interesting. But, I mean, from your perspective, before this thing even begins, Jonah Williams is here at mandatory minicamp. Is this right tackle battle kind of over, or are we the Bengals fans overthinking this one already?
Oh man, I don't know. I don't know because the one up in the air is LC, man, and I don't know how Zach Taylor feels about him. Frank Pollock feels about LC. It seems like he's well liked. You would think that if he wasn't well liked, or if they didn't think he could come back from this injury, that he would have been released already, right?
Yeah.
His contract's based on playing time, so it's not anything that would keep him on the team. Whereas Jonah, it's like literally you can only trade him. Cutting him does nothing for you. So I don't know. I guess it's going to be fun to kind of see where LC's at. LC, it sounds like dude's going to give it a go as quickly as he possibly can, which he's been notorious for being a slow healer. If all of a sudden he's a fast healer, that's maybe money talks.
The older he gets, he's Benjamin Button, baby.
So it'll be interesting, man. I'm excited. I'm excited to see that competition play out. I'm a big fan of LC. I think I think he's had a lot more good ball than bad ball. Obviously, last year was a little bit of a struggle at times, but he's a good run blocker. He's still a good run blocker. He's still a top 5 run blocker at his position. So at the very least, he's giving you, elite trait somewhere. Whereas Jonah's going to be at middle of the pack at everything, So yeah, I'm interested to see how it goes, man. I could see a scenario where Jonah still gets traded, and I think that's probably the most likely scenario in my opinion. Mainly because if LC's ready to go, say preseason week 1, they're like, oh, he's ready. And Jackson Carman shows he's got upside or whatever. You can kind of see like a Billy Price trade at the end of the preseason. And I would venture that they'd probably look at the D tackle spot.
I think that's a fascinating perspective on it because we know Duke Tobin's not going to be afraid to get a little aggressive, especially before the season. Now, we haven't seen him do like a real midseason splash. They got a little bit for Carlos Dunlap. I think it was a 6th-round pick that became – they might not even use the 6th-round pick. They might have like used it to trade up for something. Whatever that may be, I would be fascinated to see if they strike a move like that. Now, I think the right tackle position battle is fascinating. I do feel like if I had to put money on it today, I think, and you say most likely trade, for me, I think most likely is that Jonah Williams is your starting tackle for the entirety of the season. That's what I would predict. Mostly just because I think it's so hard to find quality offensive linemen. And we talk about it all the time. That's what he is, period. He's a quality offensive lineman. Middle of the pack, average, quality offensive lineman, starting caliber. Now, where he ranges in that starting caliber, that's where the debate comes in. And I think that's where this podcast probably could get ourselves in a little bit of trouble, depending on what Twitter accounts find us. But actually, it's probably on both sides of the aisle in this very bizarre political Bengals issue. We'd be getting bashed from the left and the right, Tia. People would hate us. I'm just joking. But the right tackle battle to me is just, and here's a name I just want to throw out there in a little bit bigger context. You mentioned it, but I think the Jackson Carman variable in all of this is so fascinating. Because, I mean, we've heard players talk about Jackson Carman in the past because they were asked. But it seems like there's just a lot of admiration for what he's put in the offseason. It's not like some other players where it's like, his ceiling is only so high. With Jackson Carman, the talent is there. And obviously something clicked a little bit last year at left tackle when he went out there. And, there was definitely a lot of holes in that tape. And a lot of people would tell you that. But I think it's also fair to, look at a guy that was playing left guard in a competition for a majority of the preseason, only really transitioned to tackle out of need and looked more comfortable there than he did at guard, that's for sure. So a full offseason at right tackle, I mean, he could look really good there in the preseason. He's standing in as the starter right now in minicamp, which we know means nothing. He started at the left guard position, or the right guard position as a rookie, started at the left guard position in his sophomore season in the NFL. Obviously, both of those seasons, he plummeted on the depth chart the minute training camp opened. So, I mean, that's the track record so far. We've seen, signs of life in minicamp and in OTAs and all that stuff, followed by precipitous declines once it comes time for, actual training camp, actual depth chart decisions. So I'm fascinated. I mean, how much of this change is real? We have not heard the same sort of gripes we've heard about him or the same sort of, passive answers on him that we've heard in the past. Zach Taylor's impressed by him. Frank Pollock seems impressed by him. Ted Karras is over and over again giving him praise. And, we're part of the Ted EK gospel. So the Jackson Carman component to me is just as interesting as the La'el Collins component. Because healthy La'el Collins, I mean, you said it great here. You said it all well. What you got at right tackle. Those elite traits showed up at times last year. And it's hard to deny, a guy that can play at that level, you kind of want to see him at right tackle. I mean, in your opinion, let's say a trade doesn't happen. How does that depth chart stack up, assuming all three are healthy week 1?
Gosh, man, I don't know. It's a tough one. It really is. All healthy.
Yeah, I put you on the spot a little bit, but I thought that was an interesting way to look at it. It's fascinating.
Yeah. See, I think I would go LC, man, and it's just experience there, proven there. Jonah moving to the right side, I think, would hurt him in that scenario. But yeah, I would go LC.
I would if I'm going to stack the depth chart, I just assume they're all healthy, and I'm going to contradict myself. But I think it's really likely that you'll see Jonah Williams start at right tackle, just because he's going to be healthier in training camp. And then you'll probably see La'el Collins behind him as kind of your swing tackle. They would play the left or the right. This might be bizarre, but I actually feel better about La'el Collins moving over to left tackle and being okay than I do about Jonah Williams moving over to right and be okay. Which is, I would not want to see La'el Collins at left tackle. Don't get me wrong, but I think that just speaks to the way I see them as, I'm back.
Yeah, there you are.
Yeah.
I was gonna say LC and Bolson, man. That'd be nasty.
There'd be some maul on the left side of that line. I don't know how much of that got cut out, but it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
There it goes. I don't know. I think that there might be some. There's going to be a point in this season, Tio, where we all on Bengals Twitter take a step back and want to see La'el Collins at right tackle.
Yep.
There's going to be a game. There could be a stretch of games where we're like, we're fed up with it. So I think it starts out Jonah starting. I'm curious to see what the IR designation is going to be on Collins, if at all. I mean, it wouldn't surprise me if they say he's a swing tackle to start the year. He can't play the whole game, but he can come in and be a backup.
Yeah,
we'll get him ready to be a starter. That wouldn't surprise me. Yeah, I think we're.
I think that's a good point, though. About Jonah and us being fed up, like he's gonna get fed right away to Myles Garrett. First week, and for a fact Myles Garrett's gonna line up against him as much as he can because they move him around.
Yeah.
That's tough, man. So you could see a week 1 2-sack performance from him again, and you would not blink an eye.
No, you at this point, it's the track record for him against Garrett, especially.
Yep. That's one thing you can give credit to Cleveland. They do move him around, and it always felt like they sought that matchup out. So
yeah.
And then same thing with Pittsburgh. Watt exclusively lines up on that side, and that. Oh boy, we saw how LC handled him. LC did pretty good against Watt.
He looked much more comfortable than Jonah.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know, man. I think it's going to be interesting. If that's one of the biggest, I guess, position battles, that's a good thing. So Bengals are in a pretty good spot.
Yeah, I totally agree. And right tackle. When you have the other 4 spots, we're not talking about who's going to start at guard, and I hope right tackle's okay. We're not talking about, man, I hope that the center and the right guard are going to get it together this year. Or I hope that we have enough options at center so if the first one goes bad, that we have an option behind him. It's not like that this year. The right tackle thing, you're going to have some quality options. You're actually kind of deep at right tackle. Like, that's the weird part. Like, you're not like super top heavy, but you are deep at right tackle.
Yeah, you hit on it. I think the biggest issue is backup center, right? What happens if Karras goes down, and me and you have been screaming for the Washington guy that got cut, and we'll see. We'll see if that plays out. Yeah, but it almost feels like the Bengals are almost scared to bring in an interior guy. It sounds like they love Volson, which is, I mean, you posted a thing the other day, take out the first 4 weeks or so, and he was, top half of pass blocking. That's great. So they love him, but I would like to see them bring in a backup center, and I think that guy almost fits better.
I think so too. Man, the backup center thing, and this is like, we have to not do this conversation now because there's a lot of time between now and training camp, and like the middle of July is going to be perfect for backup center talk to you. It's going to be beautiful. But I think that's a good point. I mean, if you're looking at the roster, you're not real light anywhere on the offensive line, and that's been few and far between. Another side of this Jonah Williams conversation that I just kind of want to touch on and get your perspective on. It's this component that we saw Jonah talk about in the locker room with the reporters, and that's him giving his side of the Orlando Brown acquisition, because Jonah, like us all, was stunned by this and found out via social media. Sorry, Jonah, you're just like us. No,
Yep.
but he said that he found out via an alert on Apple News to begin with, and that before anyone from the Bengals reached out, that one of the teammates reached out and was like, "Hey, have you heard from the Bengals at all?" Which that's so funny. I really wanted to know who that person was.
I do too.
Whoever it is like low key funny, because they were like trying to get Jonah to like give him the tea a little bit. Like,
yeah, you almost wonder if it was an offensive lineman.
I could see it being any of them, man. You'd feel like it would be an offensive lineman, but
It'd be even funnier if it was like Burrow or something.
That's who I was like. I wonder if it was just Joe Burrow. Like that's who I would pick first. I'd be like, I feel like Joe would just be on top of this.
Just be like, yo, what? We signed Orlando.
Yeah. Like, dude, isn't this crazy? Like, posting selfies of them eating cheeseburgers. Like, what's up, dude? For Jonah, we got one for you, brother. Where are you? I'm in California.
Oh, boy.
But basically, his point was that he just wished he had heard from someone in the Bengals, and he said it was all good, but there was definitely a little salt in his voice today when he talked to reporters. TL, are the Bengals in the wrong here?
No. Oh my gosh, Willie, what happens if you're not performing well at your job?
They find someone to replace you, TL.
Do they tell you? I mean, they might tell you you're not playing well or doing well, But I don't know, man. It's like, dude, if you were a top half left tackle, you're not getting replaced in this league. See Jacksonville, right?
How you're getting a $20 million extension as a minimum if you're an okay left tackle,
right? Even if there's rumblings about possibly getting a new left tackle, and there's been rumblings from the fan base, from everything. He should have seen it coming. The comments the coaches made about we'll see. About Jonah maybe flipping to the right side and them not fully committing. He should have seen it coming, and he shouldn't ever be surprised by that. I think it's almost a cop-out because he didn't get the trade request at this point. And I think Billy hit on it well, and if he gets on here, I'll have him dig into it deeper, obviously. But he feels like it's like a half-in, half-out approach. And it does feel like that, man. It's like, this Bengals team's got a window now to go win, and we don't need that distraction, just because your feelings are hurt. I get that you want to be a left tackle. I get it. Everyone wants to be a left tackle if it comes to choosing that or right tackle, right? But, if you play better, this isn't a question. The question then would become what's your extension going to be worth, like you said. So I just think it was kind of weak, man. And I get it, though. I get that he wanted to give his side of the story. I just think that he could have danced around it a little bit more, instead of being like, well, they still haven't gave me an answer for that. It's like, dude, do you want to get your feelings hurt? I'll give you the answer right now. Come speak to me. I'll speak on behalf of the Bengals. You didn't play well enough to protect our franchise, and that's why you are moving to the right side. And you are competing. You're not guaranteed the starting job, and they have been very clear about that, dude. If you thought you would be a starter to now competing for the right tackle, dude, I don't know what to tell you. If you can't see that, then maybe you're the problem.
Yeah, and part of the thing for me too, because I agree with everything you said. I mean, it's not. It says a lot that no one in the fan base was shocked. No one we were shocked about the player it was, but we weren't shocked that they approached the left tackle. Like, I think that him acting like he was shocked that they got a left tackle to like replace him when he's on the last year and he's like got a player option and he hasn't played well and he hasn't stayed healthy. Like, I don't know how you don't see the writing on the wall a little bit. Like obviously everyone wants to get the second contract. Everyone wants that. Like, that's what you want for your career. But I mean, what if they drafted a tackle? Like, is this how we would have acted? Like, if things went a little bit differently, and I don't know, say Matthew Bergeron is someone they decided to address
Yeah.
in the end of the first round because that's the guy a name they were connected with. He's a player they liked. I mean, what would have stopped them from moving that direction? Like, it would have been just the same. And what if they drafted Matthew Bergeron anyway at 28? How would he have acted? Like, it just opened it makes me question. Like, come on, man. There's a business component to it. This is where I'm trying to say. As an NFL player, you have to understand that you are an employee of the league, and this is the way the league works. You still have 12.9 million guaranteed. It's coming to you no matter what. So to act like you're owed some totally different treatment because you just do, I think that's so weird. Like, why would also someone made this point on Twitter. I wish I could remember who they were, but why would the Bengals tell him before it was done so he could leak it out to his agent?
Right.
Like why? First of all, if you're Jonah and you have that information, why wouldn't you do that? Because that's a leverage play on your end. But at the same time, if you're the Bengals, why would you want anyone other than the people that are involved in that negotiation to know what's going on? Like, maybe you tell Joe Burrow, maybe you tell like Jamar Chase, maybe you tell one of Mike Brown's kids or grandkids that he really loves and is really excited about. But like this concept that people are just going around telling everyone, what's going on behind the scenes on complex free agent negotiations. I don't get it, man. I really don't. And so that's where I'm at with it.
Yeah, I don't either, man. I think you made some good points. I don't get it, man. It's just play better, and then that's not a question. I think that's where I'm at. And now let's take a step back. Hopefully he takes the challenge. He's all in, and he dominates at right tackle, and then he goes get some money. I don't think it's going to be in Cincinnati, but yeah, like you said, last year of his deal, the Bengals were up in the air on even picking up his 5th-year option.
Yeah, I mean, that was a conversation this time last year.
Yeah, so it's just, you got to be able to you as a person need to see your wrongdoings, I guess. And he obviously didn't look in the mirror and didn't see that he was a problem at left tackle. So
yeah, that's what I don't get about it is like he doesn't really seem to have internalized some of that stuff like the way that I think a professional might. I mean, I don't know. I just don't know how you sell that to another team. Like, they have your tape too. If you feel amazing about what you put up, like, he's been fine, but like every other team would have been in the same boat as the Bengals. You're always looking to upgrade in your weak spots on offensive line. And, sacks aren't the best stat in the world. There's other stats that are better, but it's inarguable that he gave up the most sacks in the league last year at left tackle. Like, it's inarguable. It's there. It's a statistic.
Yep, and I think the biggest thing too is I think you're going to see a lot more comfortable Joe Burrow, knowing his left side is protected.
And yeah, we don't need to go back to like talking about how great it is that they got Orlando Brown, how good of a scheme fit that is, because we have other stuff that I want to talk about this offense. But I think we can leave it there, Tio. I think that the comfort for Joe Burrow is all that matters at the end of the day. And if Jonah Williams is uncomfortable and Joe Burrow is comfortable, I'll tell you whose situation I'm more concerned with. And I'm more concerned with a very comfortable Joe Burrow.
Yeah.
Speaking of awkward offseason things, let's talk about Joe Mixon. I do want to talk about the running back position. It's an area we also haven't spent a ton of time talking about. But it's an area where I think that now that we're kind of getting some establishment, we're kind of getting some less silly season stuff. I think we did like 30 minutes on a podcast about Zeke. So I don't know. That's silly season, baby. That's free agency.
Yeah.
But I want to talk about the guys that are in this room and the guys that are kind of going to be the cast of characters. Tio, just in a general sense, I mean, the main guys in this mix are going to be Chase Brown and Joe Mixon. Going to get a little sprinkle of Travion Williams just like we did last year. I think probably more than last year. I still think Chris Evans ends up cut. I think this is probably the end of the road for him, and I think there's a better shot, a UDFA running back or maybe James Robinson, but we'll talk. I'll let you kind of touch on that if you want to. But yeah, there's a lot going on in this running back room. I mean, it's mostly the same cast of characters we know, but the dynamics have changed a little bit. Just give me your thoughts on this group right now.
Yeah, it's fine.
Is it? It's kind of fine.
It's fine.
Yeah.
No, I mean, you got Mixon.
You got Mixon.
Yeah, Mixon, man. I mean, at this point, it's like Republicans versus Democrats, man. So split, bro. And it's just, I don't know, man. I was telling Billy this last week, man. The day I kind of knew that I didn't think Mixon. I'm trying to be careful with my words here. Don't want to upset people, but the day I kind of figured that Mixon wasn't it anymore, maybe didn't have the juice that he once had, was week 1 last year when
it's like week 1, 2018. I really did.
Yeah, right when he came into the league and he still couldn't get a 15-yard carry. No, it was week 1 last year, man, where Burrow's coming off the appendicitis and whatnot, and he had surgery. They obviously weren't going to throw it 60 times. They leaned on Mixon, man, and he had nothing to show for it. It was like 3-yard carry after 3-yard carry, and it's like that's fine to a point, but what's the goal of 3-yard carries? It's to eventually break one, right?
Yeah.
Like he said in Oakland 2 years ago, the dam will break or whatever, and it eventually did there, but it hasn't, and I don't think will with Mixon. Now, I will say, like him and Chase Brown, that could be a good tandem if you use them correctly, because I think Chase Brown definitely has more juice than P. Ryan. P. Ryan was basically the same runner as Mixon, which was never really a great fit. It's just obviously P. Ryan could pass pro. And, the argument on Mixon not getting enough chances to pass pro, that's on him, man. The coaches don't trust him to pass pro. There's no other argument. If the coaches don't trust you, there's a reason, because he's shown that he cannot do it. I'm not going to jump into that, though. So
you're starting to get hot.
Oh, gosh. Well, it's like some of the things I see on Twitter defending it or like saying that, yeah, it's crazy talk. But yeah, man, I don't know. I'm excited to see Chase Brown a little bit. But like I said, man, it's fine. How are you feeling about it?
I have very bizarre feelings on this, and you and I talked about this a little before the show started, but it just feels like a room where a lot of different things could happen. And I'll say it exactly how I said to you. It would not surprise me if equal levels here. 1, Joe Mixon plays this year, has like a Pro Bowl level year. Could look very similar to last year with maybe a little bit more production on the ground. And is just the starting running back. You could also equally sell me on a scenario where Chase Brown's the starter after like 3 weeks, and you're seeing like a pretty equal split between Travion Williams and Joe Mixon. Like it just like both scenarios seem likely to me. I just think it's so hard to know what you're getting in a running back, an aging running back in today's NFL, especially a guy like you mentioned, Tio, who does not produce in pass protection. And I would love to see it happen, because I mean, I think that Joe Mixon is the 3rd down running back. And this is a funny Joe Goodberry quote that I saw. He said that Joe Mixon was a really good pass catching running back last year for a guy that didn't play 3rd downs. Like, that says a lot to me about it. Like, he's a good pass catcher, but not on the downs where you need to be a pass catcher.
Yeah, only on 1st and 2nd, where it's basically a running game.
Yeah, where you're like trying to sneak away. You're trying to sneak one past them. Yeah.
Where most of those, by the way, were one-on-one tackles, where if he breaks a tackle, it's probably an extra 10, 20 yards. But continue.
One away.
One away mix, man.
But I think that you're okay with Mixon. We saw a step back last year. And it wasn't. There was apparently an injury. I don't know. I mean, I feel like everyone was always hurt in the NFL, and running backs are always hurt. So I have a hard time being like all the struggles were from some sort of ankle twist or something.
Right.
But he could be okay this year. I just think that it's hard to imagine there's progress. Like, I don't think it's going to get better. Like, he's either going to be the same or he's going to be a little worse. And we just have to hope that Chase Brown's ready to contribute now. You have to hope that he can be, he's an older player. I think that's the most hope for this position, unfortunately. I think that's the best case scenario for the Bengals. And, a name that we see out there that I don't think is realistic, Dalvin Cook. Even if it was Dalvin Cook, I think if the Bengals sign Dalvin Cook tomorrow, if they sign Ezekiel Elliott tomorrow, the best case scenario for this running back room is Chase Brown's ready to go. Period.
I think you're right, man. Minnesota, man, feels the same way about Dalvin as we do Mixon. It's just like, the splash is still at least there with Dalvin, but he's often injured. They think they have a good backup in Madison, and they were ready to roll, man. I don't know, man. And I just for record, I was never on the cut Mixon unless you had a solid plan. I was more so the reduced salary and bring in more guys. But yeah, I got a question for you, and I don't know, maybe it's a gut check, but say Mixon produces better than last year, closer to his year before. Do you see a scenario where he's back on the team next year?
I still don't, because I think that's a sign. Like, that tells me more about the offensive line than it does about him. Like, that, I think if you see an increase in production from him, and I could be wrong, we could see Mixon run much better this year. You can see him run solid, be a little bit more effective breaking tackles and continuing runs. But at this point in his career, if he's extending plays, it's because he doesn't have to deal with a lot of contact. He's running into good lanes, or he's creating good space with a good cut.
Yeah. I mean, that's all I want to see this year from Mixon is, on those little swing passes, which I hope to God they get rid of those.
They're so scary. I don't like.
They're so scary, and it's like most of the time though, it's well schemed, and you hear Zach Taylor saying, "Dude, it's just basically a running play." And you try to get your playmakers out one-on-one, and a lot of the times Mixon was being brought down on those one-on-ones, and that's tough. So you wonder if maybe Chase Brown gets a little bit more of those opportunities, and see if he can make people miss, or maybe Chase, someone like that. But it's like at some point you have to break tackles in order to be a running back, and that's just what it is.
Yeah, I mean, especially in today's NFL, where we're seeing the wide receivers do more of that. More guys are the wide receivers, where it's like, just watch him break a tackle after this catch, and he's a yak guy. People love yak guys in today's NFL. That's why the 49ers treat Deebo Samuel like a running back. When he was a wide receiver in college, I mean, they love the yak. They like to see what he can do with his legs and watch him create. Joe Mixon doesn't have like the yards after carry, yards after contact stuff anymore, man. It's concerning. Chase Brown didn't have the best stuff with it in college, but earlier seasons he did, so I contribute that more to wear and tear throughout the season than I do anything. He played a ton of snaps his senior year at Illinois. It was actually kind of malpractice a little bit for a guy that was getting drafted, at least in my soul. It doesn't matter. Illinois kind of win football games.
Right.
A name that I do want to bring up to you, and we talked about Dalvin Cook not being interesting, and I think we've talked about James Robinson before. Actually, we definitely have, because we've talked about the Jacksonville Jaguars on this podcast.
For sure. Yeah.
But James Robinson, after signing a 2-year, $4 million deal with the Patriots, was released after OTAs. I think that you and I are both relatively interested in what James Robinson could contribute. I mean, when you saw that name pop up, do you think he could be a nice little addition to this Bengals running back room?
Dude, I love James Robinson. The only thing with him is, a torn Achilles usually takes about 2 years to even get back to kind of close to what you were, I guess. Like even in the NBA, it's just that's just what it is.
Yeah.
So I mean, he's getting closer to that 2-year mark now, but he wasn't fast, I guess, to begin with. But something he did well in Jacksonville was he did break tackles and he did have some explosive plays. And, I'm very interested, especially if he can kind of get back to form. He's still young. Worst case scenario to me is if you go out and sign a James Robinson, is that you at least and say he absolutely doesn't have it. And, they're just like, no, we can't play him, just like the Jets did, right? The Jets are just like, nope, can't play you. That's kind of the best case scenario to me. Then you just give the reins to Chase Brown, right? If Chase Brown is what they think he is, but that's just my opinion. I would go out and take a flyer on him, see if he can get kind of back to form. Maybe tell him, yeah, you're competing for snaps, like you're in the rotation. So that's how I feel. I would like James Robinson.
Yeah, I think a lot of the same things on that for me. I think the only area where I also kind of feel like I might have a little bit to add, because you hit a lot of the good points. I mean, he adds a lot. He would add something to the rotation. That's what I think is the big thing for me. Just a little something different, because Robinson's a little more physical than what you've got now.
Yep.
Chase Brown's physical, but I mean, James Robinson likes to play more physical than a lot of guys. That's why I thought it was such a surprising shift going from him to Etienne, who's a little bit more of an elusive, a little bit, quicker with the hips and all that kind of stuff. But James Robinson will get downhill, baby. That's something he will give you.
What is this, his fourth? This would be his fourth season, correct?
I think so, because I think he was a UDFA.
I think you're right.
2020. So
and he had a good year, and then they went out and got Etienne.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, I think this is year 4, baby.
So he's still young.
He was an undrafted free agent, so he's probably a little bit older. We can figure that out because we have this beautiful thing called the we have James Robinson.
Uh-oh. Cut out for a sec. Maybe I will find James Robinson. Oh. How old did you say you cut out for a sec?
Yeah, I saw my little thing black out. He's 24 and Chase Brown's 23, so they're not super far apart.
Oh. So he's still got some miles for sure.
Yeah, I don't think
a torn Achilles at age 22 is tough.
Yeah, that's not awesome. He's 5'9". He's littler than I thought too. We're learning all sorts of things about James Robinson today on the stand by while we read more Wikipedia pages. I mean, what else do we have to talk about with this running back position? I think adding another face like James Robinson's a name we'll throw out there. We'll see more guys get cut in that caliber, I think, as training camp kind of rolls on. We do every year. We can even see someone before the season. And for me, running backs aren't a guy I need to see a billion snaps of in training camp. Or here they've had all these practices where they've,
right.
You can plug in a running back. I promise you, this offense can plug in a running.
Yeah, I don't know, man. I think what's interesting too is going to be what they do with Travion.
It seems like that's so bad.
Yeah, I kind of just jumped in. I was going to touch on Travion Williams real quick. Because the staff likes him, man. So it kind of seems like he's going to be on the team one way or another. He always finds his way. So with the James Robinson thing, I think it would be fun. I think it'd be a good ad, but I don't see it, man. I don't see it, unfortunately.
I don't see it either. And I think that's an interesting spot for the Bengals to be in. We'll see. I think something's gonna pop up. I think there will be another running back added in a veteran caliber before week 1. That's my prediction.
Ooh, interesting.
Yeah, that's not an educated prediction, but it's a prediction. I think we're going to touch on one more thing, and then we're going to get out of here. We're going to talk about another new addition that we haven't talked a ton about, but I want to talk a little bit more about Irv Smith Jr. Because we haven't seen the Bengals really do anything else at tight end. We saw them add Drew Sample back. We didn't talk about that much either. It was right before the draft. There's other things going on. But we've seen good tape from Irv Smith on the little clips we've seen on the internet. The local media has said that he looks pretty good going up the seam.
Yeah.
So my question to you is a little bit of a scales question. How good can the Bengals be with a fully healthy Irv Smith? And then kind of compare that to how much are they going to struggle if they don't have Irv Smith in the lineup? Because to me, I think that's the whole thing. I mean, you're so shallow at like the playmaking tight end spot. You have blocking guys behind him. You don't even have a guy who you liked last year in, I don't want to call it, his name isn't Mason Shrek. What's his name? What is his name, ladies and gentlemen? He was on the team.
Wilcox. Mitch Wilcox?
Mitch Wilcox.
Yeah.
There we go.
Yeah.
So don't even have him. So I want you to kind of approach this with that scale.
Wait, we don't have Mitch Wilcox? That's crazy.
No, he's on the team.
Oh, that's so sad. I thought he was solid.
I know.
Oh man. I don't know, man. I think your prediction of possibly adding a veteran running back, that's going to be my prediction for tight end spot. It seems like Duke Tobin has hinted at it that's not going to be the tight end room, going into the season. Because I mean, honestly, how bad do you feel? How bad do you feel going into it with Drew Sample as your tight end too? I don't feel good about it.
I feel middling about it. Like it feels like it just puts you in a scary spot because we even saw when CJ Uzama was out, this offense, kind of plateaued at times.
Right. And so, especially with Irv having the injury history, I will say I'm excited about Irv, man. I think he gives you something that tight end room has not had yet. Hayden Hurst provided similar stuff to him, but I think Irv's more explosive. I think he's quicker. I think he's a better route runner. Obviously when healthy, but I mean, I'm excited, man. I'm excited to see kind of what Irv's going to bring. And Irv was kind of one of the last guys available that you wanted as a free agent. All the rest of the guys did not entice you at all. So, I think it'll be interesting, man. I think they got to go out and address it somehow and bring in another guy to kind of be your tight end too. I have no idea who that's going to be. I don't know who could possibly be available. If I had to guess, I would say maybe Albert O from the Broncos. Seems like a guy kind of on the outs in Denver.
Yeah. And that's a guy I would definitely be interested in taking a swing on, even if it's like actually perfect TE2 guy, like exactly what you're looking for in the TE2.
Yep.
But the Irv Smith thing to me is so tricky because here's what I think about Irv Smith in terms of the higher level. If he produces and he plays even like 13, 14 games,
yep,
he's going to be the highest paid of the three tight ends that Joe Burrow got paid. He will make more than Hayden Hurst. He'll make more than CJ Uzama. He could be a guy that makes he can make close to $12 million a year because there aren't that many vertical tight ends that can, change a game right now. It's a different breed. It's a different body style. And it's a guy that a lot of teams just don't have. And teams are always looking for offensive weapons. Irv Smith, when he was healthy, was a vertical weapon for the Minnesota Vikings. And they loved having him in that offense. Obviously, they had to go a different direction at tight end because they couldn't keep things healthy. Yep. But I think that's the interesting part, man. Like, if he's healthy, he's just – the freak potential is so high. But I think I forgot about the Duke Tobin comment. I'm glad you mentioned it. They do need to do something else there to get, like, a veteran. And a name that I think that they're trying to push out there a little bit is Tanner Hudson. I think they want people to be interested in Tanner Hudson. I don't believe in Tanner Hudson, man. I'm not a buyer.
Is that the undrafted dude that they?
No, that's another guy. That's God, who's that guy? Like Cole Trahan or something.
Tanner Hudson. Who's Tanner Hudson, man? I've heard of the name.
Tanner Hudson was on the Patriots Super Bowl team, I guess.
Oh my God! What are we doing here?
Yeah, so think about that. Tom Brady has retired, has done a whole other thing since then. Tom Brady's had like a whole other life since then, and I believe Tanner Hudson was on that Super Bowl team.
What are we doing?
What are we doing? That's the question. I guess the other question is with this tight end position. I mean, where else? I mean, if this goes down, Irv Smith goes down. how does this sustain in the playoffs? I mean, does that scare you at all thinking about it? Because I think that not having a solid answer at tight end is a big concern if you're going to be playing playoff football, man.
Yeah, dude. I mean, I think if Irv Smith goes down and you know you have to play Drew Sample, I think you're going to see a lot of what you see with Mixon, a lot of 4-yard catches to Drew Sample, kind of like we did see when Uzama went down for a little bit. It was like 4 yards and nothing else. He would catch the ball and instantly get tackled, or he'd catch the ball in open space and get tripped by the grass. And so, yeah, you go from potentially being explosive to, you know, them being able to double the outsides and Chase and T again and saying, go ahead, Boyd, go ahead, make a play.
Yeah.
And that's, you know, that's something you don't want to see. So, yeah, man, I don't know. I just think that you really have to address it. And, man, the more I think about it, Albert O would be such a great ad because he provides basically the same stuff, you know, to a lesser degree and a less proven degree, I guess, as Irv Smith does. So I'm trying to think of other names, man.
Aren't that many tight ends, man.
No. I'm who drafted 2 tight ends? Oh, the Packers. DeGuara or whatever.
Yeah,
could be possibly a name. Doesn't excite me. What was that?
He's a Bearcat.
Oh yeah, I mean, Packers fans. That's their Drew Sample, man. They do not.
Oh man, that would be someone
yeah.
else's Drew Sample.
But they drafted 2 tight ends, so you could see a scenario where he gets cut or is on the trade block. So I just keep an eye. I know the Giants got a lot of guys. Obviously the Jets. So just keep an eye on those teams.
Well, I think that's where we'll leave it. Keep an eye on some of those other teams with leftover tight ends entering training camp, exiting training camp. The Bengals are going to look a little bit different tight end to enter the season. And we're gonna have a lot more to talk about. T.O. and I might look a little different into the season. We're both getting matching face tattoos. Week 1. No, I'm just joking.
Yes, sir.
That's all I got for us from the Same Old Stripes podcast today. Hopefully we'll be back. I thought we were going to get a Billy appearance, but no such luck.
No Billy.
But he was here in spirit. For T.O. and myself,
Houday. Also, right before we leave, shout out Jay Morrison, man.
Yeah.
Super tough cut down. You know, he's going to land on his feet. He's going to go on and hopefully cover the Bengals. But, you know, wherever he goes, he's going to be successful, and wish him the best.
Yeah, and Jay has been a great guest for us. He's been a great friend. One of the really good people around the beat. One of the great people that, you know, make us love the Bengals even more with the way he covers the team. So, like Tio said, we're going to see him land on his feet. And with that, we leave you with a hearty Houday.
Houday.